Hi, my name is Adam, and I'm here to show you some tips and tricks that you can use this year to make your pumpkin a cut above. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make a lid for our pumpkin by cutting off the top portion. So the tool I'm going to use for that is this little carving saw. I got this in a pumpkin carving kit, and this is going to work really well. It's going to cut through this shell very easily. You can use a kitchen knife if you have one, but this is going to be safer, and it actually works better because of the serrated saw blade. So you want to cut at a 45-degree angle when you start this. And if you imagine the blade pointed right at the middle of the pumpkin, that's about a 45-degree angle. The reason for that is you don't want it to slide around. If you cut straight across, it's going to slide off. Or if you cut straight down, it could fall into the pumpkin. So I'm going to cut this at a 45-degree angle. We're just going to go ahead and start. Oops, let's see. Okay. I'm just going to kind of slowly work my way around. And I put some newspaper down just to catch any mess. And as you'll see, I'm not going perfectly straight across. And that helps to keep the lid from just sliding off when I put it back. You'll see in a moment, when I get to the back, I'm actually going to cut a V-shaped notch into it. And that's to help orient the lid. We'll know right where it goes into place, and that'll keep it from sliding around a lot. So just kind of slowly working my way around. Okay, and now that I'm toward the back, I'm actually going to go ahead and put in that V-shaped notch that I talked about. Okay, and that's got it. So I'm going to just pull the top off now. It's going to be kind of messy. There we go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now that I've got this off is I'm going to clean the lid. And I actually just use a spoon for this. And I have a cauldron as well. If you don't have that, you can always just use a trash can. So here we go. I'm just going to scoop this off. And basically you just want to scrape it off until it's completely clean. One tip that a lot of people miss with pumpkins is you want to cut a vent for your candle that's going to go on the inside. Just a small hole in the top, and I'm actually going to put this toward the back where our notch is. I'm going to cut it like right behind the stem right here so it doesn't show. Just going to kind of drill a hole here, and what that's going to do is it's going to create a hole there where it's going to create an updraft for the candle, and it's going to make the flame burn brighter. It's kind of like a chimney almost. It doesn't have to be very big, just a very small hole here. Okay. Okay. So now that that step is done, we're going to go ahead and go to the next step, which is to clean out the inside of the pumpkin. Okay, so our next step, now that we have the lid off, is going to be to clean out the inside. Everybody's favorite part, right? So I've got a measuring cup that I'm going to use for this. You can use the spoon, but this measuring cup is going to make it so much easier. And all you need to do is just scoop out all the insides. And we want to thin this shell to about 1 inch or less. That's going to make it a lot easier to carve when we start. So I'm just going to go ahead and scoop this part out. I've got most of it already kind of out, so I'm just going to start putting it over here in my cauldron. And the measuring cup really does make it so much easier because it just kind of catches everything and you can just easily scoop it out. It makes it a little bit easier than using a spoon or something. And already, I've almost got all of it cleaned up. And again, I'm just working my way around the sides now because I want to thin out the shell, which is what the sides or the walls of the pumpkin are called. I want that to be about an inch or less because that's going to make it much easier to cut through when we start our carving. Okay, all right, and that's got our pumpkin cleaned out and thinned out a little bit, so we're ready to go to the next step. Okay, so we're ready to begin carving our pumpkin. What I'm going to be using today is a template. You can print these out online. This one happened to come with the pumpkin carving kit. You can also just carve freehanded if you want to, or you can use a crayon and trace an outline. That works really well. But for this paper template, I'm actually going to use scissors and cut slits along the edges of the paper, and the reason for that is so that it will adhere to the curve of the pumpkin better. So let me just go around real quick and cut these slits. Just a few here and there. And then I'm going to use some masking tape to tape this to the front of our pumpkin. Let me make sure I have the right side. Okay. I want to tape it kind of right in the middle. I don't want to get too close to where we cut for the lid, so maybe right there. Okay. And this doesn't have to be super perfect, we just want it to stay put basically, so I'm just going to kind of tape it at the corners. Just like that, just enough to kind of hold it in place. Okay, and rather than just start carving right now, I'm actually going to use a thumbtack or a push pin, and I'm just going to outline this just by making a hole about every 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to work my way around each outline. And what that's going to do, we're going to actually remove this piece of paper once I get done with this, and we're going to be able to see where we need to carve just by following the holes that I'm punching. And the great thing about this method is that you don't have anything to clean up afterwards. You don't have any like crayon or pencil or anything, pen, that you have to go back and try to erase. It's just going to disappear when we start carving. As you're carving, if your pumpkin has some like teeth or intricate parts like that, this one not so much, but sometimes depending on the design it will. If you accidentally break off a piece as you're carving, you can reattach it with a piece of toothpick. You can just break off a piece of toothpick and use it like a post and just kind of put it back in place. So now that we've got that outlined, set that aside, and I'm going to remove the template. Just peel off the tape. And I can see it. It doesn't show up real well, but I can definitely see the outline that I need to cut for my carving. Now, if you have trouble seeing this, when you're finished, you can actually sprinkle some flour on it, and that will make the holes show up really well. And then you can just dust that off or clean that off with like a brush or something. So now that I've got the outline, I'm going to use my carving saw again and just go around each one carefully and cut it out. And just kind of take your time with this part because you don't want to rush it and mess up. This is where thinning the shell to about an inch really helps us out. Makes it a lot easier now to cut through this. that one through. Another tip, by the way, is especially if you have a really intricate design, is you want to really start in the middle and work your way out. In this one, it's not such a big deal because it's a more simpler design, but if it has a lot of little details, it's better to start in the middle, because if you don't, it can cause the pumpkin to kind of cave in on itself as you're carving. Okay, so last thing to do is just his mouth now. So I'm going to start at the top and just kind of work my way around. And the nice thing about using one of these carving saws instead of a knife is that you just have a lot more control over the cut. So you can really do a better, kind of cleaner design. And when I'm doing a large section like this, you can actually do it in sections. So rather than try to cut all the way across, I'm actually going to cut down the middle and then up, and then do the other side. And that again will help us to prevent from breaking off any teeth or anything. Plus it just makes it easier. All right, so that's got our carving done. What do you think? Kind of looks like me, huh? So put our lid back on, and I'm gonna go back and just kind of clean it up a little bit in just a moment, but that's it. That's our pumpkin carved. Okay, so we've got it all cleaned up now. If you want to preserve it for a few extra days, you can try putting some petroleum jelly on the carved parts, and you can also put it in the refrigerator if it will fit, and that'll help it keep for a few more days. So I've got the candle on the inside, it's lit up, and the only thing that's left to do now is turn off the lights.